family is a big, huge part of your life. Of course it is. You've got 5 children. You're raising them alongside this company that's going gangbusters. How do you deal with this work-life balance that we always come back to, the juggle? Like, how do you make sure you're getting it more right than wrong?
I think mostly I've dealt with it rather badly, truthfully. And I say that not for sort of pity, but I just think that so often women are sort of told they have to be perfect and this and that, and actually it doesn't matter. You can do what you do as long as my big takeout is what matters to children is that they know they are utterly loved, that they would always come first in any sort of serious situation, and that the mood around the kitchen table is a happy one and a sort of progressive, positive one. I think that that frankly, if we end up getting a takeout rotisserie chicken and it's all a bit chaotic and who cares, it's just bit crap, but it doesn't matter because the mood's good. That's what I think stays with children. I hope I've clung to that thought anyway. Versus having it all perfect, but actually the mother highly strung and the parents not actually getting on very well and everyone feeling a bit on tenterhooks. So obviously there's many better versions of just having crap chicken takeout and a good mood. But that's my basis. That if you get those elements right, and I also think you need to show kids that relationships are real and stresses. I'm very openly vulnerable with my kids, so I will, and they help me solve a lot of problems. If I'm stressed about something, I'll tell them about it and why and how I'm trying to work through it. And I think if you're just very honest with them, they feel vested and they know what's going through your head, because so often they just see me looking at a screen and in my head I'm actually going to a problem in Tokyo and a problem in Hong Kong and an issue in production and and all these staffing issues, all the things that we deal with all the time, but they're just seeing me look at a screen. So you actually just need to kind of go, by the way, this is what's going through my head. This is why I'm probably going to be a bit scratchy tonight because I'm just really conflicted about this problem. So I actually share a lot of it with them, and then we muddle through. And I can't cook. I can't even boil an egg. I have 5 children, 4 of whom are, I should say 5, but 4 of them are brilliant cooks. One of them actually worked at the River Cafe. I mean, just give you a sense. So you know what? It kind of works out, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Maybe out of complete necessity that we have to cook. So I love the fact that you
sent a child to train with Ruthie Rogers so that you would definitely have good meals around the table one day.
Maybe she took pity, but no, they're all really interested in food. But I think out of literally they're probably just hungry. So I don't know. I think mood. Keep that front of mind, and that's all that actually. That's the basis. That's all that really matters. The rest is just a nice to have. I think, and that's my cop-out starting point.
It's interesting that you talk about the honesty bit, though, and how honest you should be with them, and even from a really early age. And I know that you're a stepmom as well, and you've had to navigate some tricky and tough conversations with your children on that stuff. I just remember from when Ben and I decided to embark on a surrogacy journey, and we had Fox via a surrogate, and we were thinking, okay, how do we best talk to Bellatrix about this, who at the time was only sort of 4.5, and it felt a bit ridiculous describing any sort of a journey like that to her. But I remember thinking, if we don't say it as it is, we're going to get found out later in many different ways. It's so much better just to tell the truth. And I think that is probably the same of life. How do you have those sorts of tough conversations with children? You've obviously had to have a few over the years. How do you sort of embark upon that for people that sort of struggle to know how to do that?
I think you can just let it be okay to be vulnerable. I mean, so I inherited, as you know, I inherited my first 3 children. Their mother tragically died, and I met them 6 months after their mum died, and they were age 1, 3, and 4. So they really feel like my children. It's I think kindness, honesty is the only solution, but I think honesty ultimately is the winner. And I think the thing I learned from having bereaved kids, and I spoke to quite a number of specialists in bereavement, is that actually don't shield them from anything. That was the real takeout I had from experts, down to they want to know if someone dies, they want to know, could I have done something? That's a question that needs answering. And so they need to know right down to, was someone with them? Was the blood? All that sort of really kind of tough stuff. But they actually can't grieve until they've made peace with the fact that everything that was possible was done, so there's a lot to kind of work through, and you need to read a lot and ask advice and sort of go on that journey. But honestly, at the root of it is just kindness. I think that really, kindness and honesty are the two things. I think if you do those two things, you don't go too far wrong.
Yeah, and happiness, like you said before about sitting around a table and the mood being positive and being happy, and that can-do attitude. I think that counts for so much as well. And children pick up on that all the time, don't they? They really do need
Don't get me
that
wrong,
that around them.
really crosspatch. No, children call me the fun tampon, so trust me, there's times when I'm really not good. Famously unfun, but we can, and I can sulk. I'm really very far.
You and analogies are absolutely marvelous.
Pull that quote out. I don't want that quote pulled out anywhere. Otherwise, I really won't make you my friend anymore to say. Okay, I'm going to hold that against you if you pull that quote out. That's in the Daily Mail. I will kill you.
Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good. We won't talk about the bra conversation we had prior to coming on air. Either. We'll just leave that. So where does this leave James as well? Because how on earth can you work with your husband? I mean, genuinely, how do you cope working with your husband? Because I honestly think that would be the straight course to path to divorce for Ben and I. So how do you make that happen and make it happen successfully without problems?
Well, he's a saint, truthfully. He's quite annoying at times, but he's a saint, and he doesn't really care. I think it's the bit I like about him the most. He really doesn't sort of care about my sort of ups and downs. No, he's very happy in his own skin. Actually, my husband, which is a really admirable thing. Because a lot of the time he does a huge amount of the work, and a lot of the time people just talk about me. And actually, I think it's very cool that. I wish I was that cool that, I wasn't sort of needy in that way. He's very comfortable with who he is. And he's just actually quite a nice man. That sounds, he rips the mickey out of me, so he's not properly nice, but he's actually just, he's kind in that way. So we work together mostly quite well, and we can argue a bit at times. I'm neurotically organised, as you probably know. He's got your inbox. I have to remind him 7 times I always say this is the 6th time of asking, now, because I know by the 7th I'll probably annoy you so much with it. Case in point, the plumber finally today after the 7th time of asking. So we're quite opposite, but equally I'm the sort of person who's kind of going, let's worry about tomorrow. And he's like, it's Saturday, the sun's out, let's make some really nice coffee. Let's live in the moment. So we're real opposites. And I think you need opposites probably mostly. And so he's quite good for me, I would say. I'm not sure I'm that good for him. He's quite good for me.
You're very good for him. I'm sure you're really good for him. But it is interesting what you say about that, because I was going to ask you about whether it's lonely being a leader, but I guess you've got each other, actually. Even though your name is above the door, it's very much a team, isn't it, the two of you?
It is when he wants to talk about it. Of course, I'll talk about work all day and all night, and he literally goes. He always has his hand on the bedroom door, and I'm like, take your hand off the bedroom door. I want to talk to you about this. But it's like the exit, it's like pulling the emergency cord. And so luckily, 2-hour journeys to Wiltshire when I've got him trapped and I can go through all my worries. He never has any worries. It's really interesting. I have this whole thing I need to go off my chest. He never once says that he's got a worry. It's really interesting. We're so different. But yes, and I'm so lucky. I have incredible parents. My dad started a business very young, and he in particular. My mother's very supportive, but not less well at the moment, actually, unfortunately. But my father is still on my board, aged 80-something, and is sharp as anything, and is just brilliant. And he is very much a sort of a rural sort of sounding block. And I call him my harshest critic, because if I ask advice from him, it will always be quite tough, but absolutely unvarnished advice, which is actually the most useful advice, honestly. So I do feel very supported in that way. And I feel supported by I've got a great group I work with who are, some of whom I've worked with 20 years at work, and they're my dear friends, truthfully. But, that I can, that's a great sounding board of people who know what we're dealing with, know me, know, the sort of the plan. So I think you have to build that around you, but I feel incredibly lucky in my family, for sure.
And do you feel like now that you're where you are in work, in life, you actually, and I picked it up in your book, you sort of say, before I got to 50, I sort of felt like I didn't really want to say too much, but now you feel like actually you've got loads to say and you want to share it. Is that important to you, mentoring as well, and how you do that with the next generation of female leaders that are coming up?
I really think so, actually, and it's the one thing I do care really passionately about. I actually regularly kind of get together groups of women, and it's amazing what comes out. It's huge sort of kindness. People talk about women as being catty, they're not. They're so supportive, and I do really believe in that. If you can see it, you can be it. And I had an amazing aunt who was just my legend, Aunt Wiz, she was called, who never had kids, and she was just one of those amazing women who was just really inspiring. I have a group of friends who, female friends, who just are really impressive women who I just look up to and think, actually, they can stand up there and do that. I can do it. It really does help to have that sort of that sort of group around you. I do think that we need to really sort of sometimes push ourselves to slightly less comfortable positions. I talk about our generation, my generation, as being the sort of transition generation from my mother, who worked a bit but didn't have a major career, to me having a busy career, and therefore trying to juggle the home and the career is quite challenging, because we have the sort of the memory of our mums doing the lovely ribbons and presents and Brussels sprouts with tied chives, which is quite, you feel guilty. So we have to sort of make peace with that, and actually, I think, pave the way for getting rid of equally the insecurity you have when you sit in a serious board meeting and you think, I'm sort of one of the few women here where I don't belong here. But we need to push through that uncomfortable feeling to actually, therefore my daughter can see me doing it, then she can think I can do that too. So it's a rambling answer, but I was distracted by the thing that came through the door. Lost my thread. Does that make sense?
It's another plumber. Oh yay, joy. No, but it does make it. It does make perfect sense, because I talk to Bellatrix, my daughter, about this sort of stuff now. I mean, we have this moment where I'm putting her to bed and Ben's away, because he's always away, and he's always on the water somewhere in the world on a boat. And so because of that, Bellatrix and I have this sort of moment before she goes to sleep at night where it's a good stalling tactic from her, but it allows us to actually have a bit of a chin wag before she goes to sleep. I'm under no illusion of the fact that she's just using it as a stalling tactic to stay up, but I feel like I'm closer to her as a result of it. But we have this sort of conversation, and she talks to me about what she wants to do when she's older and this, that, and the other. And it is true to say that if you are a busy working mum, you do at least have that play where you can say, you can do what I do, you can do what daddy does, you can go and do whatever else you want to go and do. And she does look at it as an equal scenario, which, when I was growing up, it was very much my dad that was leading the charge for that, and had this incredible work ethic that I absolutely clambered after and loved and aspired to. But then when I think about it, looking back, my mum did the same thing, but just for our home situation, a bit like you're describing your mother. So I don't know. It is peaks and troughs, isn't it? But it feels like the opportunity is there now for the taking for the next bunch of girls coming through.
I think also on the flip side, it's actually also an adjustment for the men, for the boys, because,
yes,
I laugh. I always think it's funny. I assume still, even though I work just as hard as my husband, sometimes you could argue harder, I still assume that I should write the thank you letter if we go to dinner.
Me too.
And actually, to be honest, if I did write the thank you letter, I would feel like I was being lazy, or I was in some way making him do something that wasn't appropriate. And yet why? We both go to the dinner, right? We both eat the food, and why should I write the thank you letter? And so there are some adjustments to make, in the same way that I think, my father probably never changed a nappy. My husband absolutely did. So it's moving that right direction. So boys also need to see where I have my mother's, work, home ethic of standards. Mine have obviously had to adjust, because I just can't do it all. I would get sick if I had her standards of home and trying to do the career I do. So I think my daughter's seen that, and she hopefully won't be having to put chive bows on Brussels sprouts. But my son has also seen that my husband shares the load on lots of things as well. So actually we're doing, it's not just teaching the girls to sort of say you can, it's also saying to the boys, actually, it should be more 50-50. And I think it's much better by example, because those memories in your head they're a sort of muscle memory, aren't they? They're very automatic. So I still struggle, ridiculous though it is, with the thank you letter. And I just wouldn't dream of asking my husband to do that. I don't know why, but I suspect my son probably absolutely would do that 50-50. So it's within a generation, it's shifted a lot.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. In terms of what you do to kind of, stay on track, because you just talked about I'd sort of fall over if I had to do all of it. Are you exercising? Are you eating really well? Are you doing all those things that typically you should do to keep on the straight and narrow, or not?
I know the answer to that. I told you. before we started this, I think I've done 300 steps in the last 2 weeks. I did 11 miles the weekend before that. So
yeah, but how many miles have you done? You've done so many miles on a plane.
No, I walked 7 miles the weekend before last. No, I'm not, truthfully. And I think I'm actually, it's really quite dangerous not looking after yourself. And so I think there was a point when I suddenly took over 3 children and I tried to be like my mother, and I was working hard, and I did nearly fall over. I got really kind of run down and stressed, and I had to kind of actually take myself away and sit down and think, how am I going to manage this? This is not sustainable. Yeah. And I had to put in the right help, and I had to actually assume that I had to sort of slightly change my not standards, but my, the reality of what I could manage at home. And I also had to change a bit at work, and I had to kind of rewrite my own. And sometimes it's quite good to kind of go away and big piece of paper and kind of go, this won't work, like new strategy. So I did that. I think I also have learnt about myself more in terms of what I can manage and what works for me. I love to walk. I love to go into the gym as well, but I'm just not anywhere near doing that at the moment. But at least getting out and doing 10,000 steps in the morning. And I'm doing a lot of Asian work at the moment. So I'm just at the office at 8, and I'm not that person who can get up at 6 and do your exercise, then wash your hair, then look good and be ready for a meeting and get to the office. I just end up with strep throat. So you have to sort of know your limits. I also know that I can do that for a bit and I will fall over. You have to, I talk about in the book about, putting stepping stones in, having a holiday, having a health farm trip, having a moment where you just have a time to regroup with yourself. Put those in. You have to be quite strategic about managing your energy and your exhaustion, because it's like sunburn. If you just go too far, you just step over and it can cost you weeks of being ill or unwell or, whatever. So I know for me, the most fundamental thing is sleep. If I get sleep, I can kind of nudge away a flu virus. That's my absolute 101. For me, food is important, and I have a terrible habit for wine gums, and that's my kind of crutch when it all goes wrong, and that doesn't help anyone. So it's planning. So I take my work to lunch so that when you're hungry, it's there, not kind of rushing out last minute and then going for the wrong thing. So planning and organisation, back to organisation and labelling, is really fundamental. And I realise that's my absolute basis. And then obviously exercise is I know it's the thing that makes me feel happy. Forget fitness, it's the thing that makes me feel good. And so at the moment, I do it at the weekends, and that's a bit frustrating, but that's, I think I can do that for 6 months, and then I need to regroup again. So you just have to adjust, but I've had to take that very seriously. And I find that, to the point of the fun tampon accusation, I know that my weekends have to be off because I'm on all week. And, you're doing things and you're up and but the weekends I actually have to become a bit of a boring old moo and actually do a bit of me and chill and get a bit bored. Because if I don't do that, I will fall over the next week. So it's a bit military, but it's essential. I've really learned that as I got older.
I wasn't going to bring up the fun tampon again, but you did it all by yourself. You just walked straight back into that conversation. So I want to ask you finally then for a performance tip, a thing that you do every day. We've talked about the things that you don't do and the things you want to do more of. What do you do every single day that you kind of live by, that you swear by, that you know is going to get you through the day better? Just even if it's just a little ickle bit.
I have to say, don't I? Wash your hair, because the book is called If in Doubt, Wash Your Hair. And I think that came about because it's that small little thing of self-care, of taking 5 minutes, having a shower just is like meditation for me anyway. And it's that thing where you just feel better. You feel like you've made that effort. And the days I do and the days I don't are quite different days. So it's a silly tip, but it's slightly sort of cathartic. It's slightly about washing away your worries. But everyone has their thing that just makes them feel like they can sort of manage and cope. So that's probably my most basic one.
You'll be able to do that now you've had the plumber in.
Too right. The water will be piping hot.
Oh, Anya, you've been a joy. Thank you so much.
I worry I might regret this one. I can see I'll do some job in the next years. It'll be the headline. Anyway, whatever,
It is what it is. It is what it is. It's great fun. It's great fun. Thank you so much.